talking about a kid that all of us, we were talking about early on. Certainly, it was very clear that the Michigan coaching staff was very high on this young man. And then suddenly the scouts really caught up. We've talked about him before briefly on the podcast, but Bears bringing him back up because he's since cut down his list. There is an announcement date for a young man out of Fresno, California, Xavier Worthy, who, Steve, I know you were one of the first ones to say, wow, look at this guy's rating. He is criminally underrated right now. Seems like the scouts, our guys at 24/7 have really caught up, but I'm willing to bet that their coaches, whether they're coaches at Michigan or Oregon or what have you, probably still think he's underrated.
Yeah, I mean, like, the term pops on film, he's jumped out to me more than almost anybody that they're recruiting this cycle, regardless of position. To me, he looks like the guys that Bama, a guy that Bama has produced the last like 4 or 5 cycles, like a Henry Ruggs or a Jerry Jeudy, the just smooth, lightning fast, knows what to do with the football, great hands. I mean, because he's got the track speed, the track times. He'll probably run track wherever he signs. But just that innate ability to play receiver. And he does. He kind of reminds me of Jerry Jeudy, to be honest with you. I don't know. Jeudy probably, I think we had him as the number 1 receiver the cycle that he was signed. But I think Worthy's a very, very similar player. A guy that he could beat you for the deep ball, but is also a guy, I think, get him the ball early and let him go to work, because if you give him a little bit of open space, he's going to take it to the house. So dynamic. I suspect he's not done rising. I think the more that our people watch him, the more he does, if he is able to play this season, or if anybody even just gets to watch him at a camp, I think he's a guy that's going to keep moving up, honestly. We'll have to see on that, but very, very high on him. I mean, he's a stud.
Yeah, just an absolute burner. That's why we're bringing him back up here on the podcast. He is going to be announcing his decision June 27th. I've put in a crystal ball for Oregon there. Now, as we mentioned in the previous podcast, he's never been to Oregon. He's never been to Michigan. I mean, the schools that you look at in his top group, he hasn't been to Bama. He hasn't been to Auburn. He hasn't been to Georgia. He hasn't been to LSU. He's been to none of these schools. And so when he commits, it's going to be to a school that he hasn't visited, which is why I think this talking point for us is extremely important. There are going to be a number of kids throughout the country and all across this recruiting cycle that you see committed to schools and still taking visits. So wherever he goes on the 27th, and I think it's going to be to Oregon, I do not think that will be the end of his recruitment. Certainly he has been a guy that Josh Gaddis has prioritized for some time now, to the point where some of the things that I heard about why Oregon is trending that made me sort of reach out to Greg Biggins and Brandon Huffman and those guys. I had heard that Dante Thornton was a guy that Oregon was looking good for. He is very, very much trending in their direction. And they were kind of pushing out there that as far as receivers go, they were coming up on maybe the end of their recruiting board as far as receivers are concerned. So I think it's one of those things where he's locking up a spot in the class and leaving open the opportunity because another kid, Troy Franklin, who's committed there already. I mean, that if they get Dante Thornton and Troy Franklin, they already have a receiver in the class with the Ducks, that would be a 4-receiver class. So you understand why, if Oregon is at or near the top of the list, why he might feel compelled to jump in that class. But if you're Michigan, like I said, the way that you've been on him, the way that he's reciprocated, the effort that you've also put into the track side. And Bryce, we're going to be talking about dual sport guys.